Our big focus, Israel and Hamas inch closer to a hostage and ceasefire deal. Mediators, in fact, are reportedly awaiting a response from both sides to the final draft of an agreement that would see Hamas release 33 hostages after talks in Qatar resulted in what an Israeli official has described as a breakthrough. The momentum, though, marks the first sign of serious optimism in months, as Donald Trump's inauguration next week has actually upped the pressure for a deal. Trump's Middle East envoy participated in negotiations alongside Joe Biden's team, conveying a consensus between administrations. Still, challenges remain. Israel's far-right finance minister said he wouldn't back any truce to stop the war in what some have called a last-minute wrecking ball for negotiations. Listen in to what the Israeli foreign minister had to say on record.
Progress was made. We see some progress in the negotiations. Israel wants a hostage deal. Israel is working with our American friends in order to achieve a hostage deal. And soon we will know whether the other side wants the same thing.
My colleague Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking the finer details very closely. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, we've just heard from the Israeli foreign minister. So are the terms of a deal between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages actually being finalized?
See, it looks very likely this time because not just officials attached with the Biden administration, but those who are going to replace them in the incoming Trump administration are also involved in the negotiations. And there is a deal, as you rightly pointed out, which suggests that perhaps on the very first day of the deal, Hamas will release 3 hostages. Israel will start moving out of the populated areas in Gaza Strip. More than that, it is also a pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu because he has been accused by several officials, both in Biden administration, both in his own government, who have been suggesting that he took out some liberty to stall the negotiation process. But this time around, perhaps Hamas has also agreed on such terms on which they were not agreeing in the previous negotiation processes. So this time around, it perhaps appears that both Biden and Trump have put pressure on Mr. Netanyahu as well to ensure that the deal gets through and we have a ceasefire as well as release of hostages from the Gaza Strip. So hectic negotiations are going on in Qatar. Netanyahu also sent his officials to Doha to go through the proposal, to go through the text of that entire draft proposal framed by the United States in consultations with Egypt and Qatar, and even Hamas members or those representing Hamas were part of this negotiation. They are also going through the proposal. And Mr. Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, also confirmed yesterday that perhaps by the end of this week, we can see some breakthrough because that is going to be the last week before Biden moves out of the White House and Mr. Trump takes over in. So both the administration are also they're actually in that kind of credit war as well because officials attached with Mr. Trump say that perhaps his warning that if hostages are not released, then all hell will break loose, has somewhat forced Hamas to come on the negotiation table and accept even those terms for which they were not agreeing earlier.
Well, Ghazali, thanks so much for joining us with this detailed update. In another 6 days, Trump takes office. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates and analysis. Meanwhile, according to a Bloomberg report, members of Donald Trump's incoming economic team are discussing slowly ramping up tariffs month by month, a gradual approach aimed at boosting negotiating leverage while helping avoid a spike in inflation. One idea, in fact, involves a schedule of graduated tariffs increasing by about 2 to 5% a month and would rely on executive authorities under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the report suggests. But the proposal is in its early stages and has not yet been presented to Trump, a sign that a monthly stepped approach is early in the deliberation process. Well, in other news, in its final week in the White House, the Biden administration has proposed a new framework for exporting advanced computer chips used to develop artificial intelligence, an attempt to balance national security concerns about tech with the economic interests of producers and other countries. The Biden administration's new rules to curtail other nations' access to advanced artificial intelligence chips sparked frustration within the industry, though. The controls put limits on AI semiconductor exports to 120 countries, including some of Washington's close trading partners. Now, they are aimed at stopping China, which already faces restrictions on AI chip purchases, from obtaining the tech from other nations. But US chip giant NVIDIA, whose stock fell on the news of the curbs, said the regulation is merely cloaked in the guise of an anti-China measure and wouldn't enhance US security. Now, you must note that while the Biden administration is attempting to set up a global framework that will help guide how artificial intelligence spreads around the world in the years to come, however, ultimately, it will be up to the Trump administration, which enters office in about 6 days, to decide whether to keep the new rules or how to enforce them. For further clarity, we have with us Irina Sukuman on the broadcast. Thanks so much, Irina, as always, for making time for us. Now, how will this impact global trade relations, and could it strain partnerships that have historically been strong?
Thank you so much for this question. Well, one of the interesting developments is that Biden is actually restricting the supply of these AI chips to Israel until Israel severes its industry ties to China, presumably meaning until they stop supplying China with this technology. China has been quite flexible in obtaining these chips from various third parties, exploiting loopholes in the export-import controls, but also aligning with countries that have developed very strong industry relations with China. China and Israel on a government level have not been close in any meaningful way, especially after October 7th. But on the business side, side has been quite a great deal of dependency, and this is one of those points that could put a great deal of strain between the U.S. and Israel, and it is also one of the measures that the Trump administration could potentially continue if they take the threat of China, particularly in the technology sector, seriously. But Israel is likely not to be the only country that will face these measures. A number of Middle Eastern countries have been cooperating through BRICS with China on technology exchanges and attempts to develop independent AI and AI chips industry. Saudi Arabia, UAE, just a couple of them.
Irina, while the US government, though, justifies this whole AI chip restriction saga as a national security measure, we've got NVIDIA saying that these controls are more about geopolitical controls and geopolitical posturing rather than actual security. So what's your view? Is this a case of protecting national security or are economic interests at play?
Truth is, these restrictions are a temporary measure in the sense that China has been looking to develop its own domestic technology and to become less dependent on other countries. Nevertheless, timing matters. If we are talking about a real tech race, and it looks increasingly as we are, these crucial months or a couple of years can make a big difference in the technology arena. And while China has been successful with mid-range AI chips independent development, they have been far less successful in advanced technologies, which matter particularly in weapons and top technology that is linked to national security concerns, to military. To the military development, to military and security priorities.
Well, Irina, thanks so much for joining us with your opinion on the matter. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when things progress. In other news, Singapore's President, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, will be on a state visit to India till the 18th of January at the invitation of the President. In fact, Mr. Tharman's state visit commemorates the 60th anniversary of the establishment of Singapore-India diplomatic relations. And he will actually be in New Delhi till the 16th of January and Odisha on the 17th and 18th of this month. The Singapore president will also visit the World Skills Center, which was set up by the Singapore Institute of Technical Education Services with funding from the Asian Development Bank. He's also going to be visiting a vaccine manufacturing plant run by Bharat Biotech. But this visit is likely to take India-Singapore relations to new heights with a focus on non-traditional areas of cooperations. This includes areas such as energy, industrial parks and skills. This is what the Ministry of External Affairs has said. By the way, this will be the Singaporean leader's first state visit to India and the first by Singapore president to India in 10 years. In other news, India conveyed to Bangladesh Acting High Commissioner to India, Muhammad Nur al-Islam, that New Delhi observed all protocols and agreements with regard to security measures at the border, including while fencing, the Ministry of External Affairs has said in its statement. The Bangladesh Acting High Commissioner to India was summoned by the MEA on Monday to South Block, and India also reiterated its commitment to ensuring a crime-free border by effectively addressing the challenges of cross-border criminal activities, smuggling, as well as the movement of criminals and trafficking. In fact, the MEA has said that barbed wire fencing, border lighting, installation of technical devices and cattle fences are measures for securing the border. And let's get you an update as far as Dr. Jaishankar's Spain touchdown is concerned. Our External Affairs Minister met Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez and called for greater cooperation between India and Spain to broaden the relationship between India and the European Union. Our External Affairs Minister said that India and Spain signed 2 agreements, one in the field of sports and the other in sustainable development. In fact, they are going to be building on areas of sports and sustainable urban development as well, indicating how they are actually interested in broadening their area of cooperation. Dr. Jaishankar also called for Spain to help in India's Make in India endeavour. He also said that both the countries are intensifying their defence cooperation. In fact, that's not all. Dr. Jaishankar further said that they have agreed to make 2026 a year of artificial intelligence and culture tourism, aiming at improving people-to-people ties.
There are already, I believe, 230 Spanish companies with a presence in India, and we would welcome more of them to join us in Make in India, Design in India, collaborate with India. I'm very confident that strong India-Spain relations and a strong India-EU collaboration can be a stabilizing factor in a turbulent world, and I certainly hope that my conversations with you and with your leadership would help advance that process. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, let's get you an update as far as the Sri Lankan president's plan of action is concerned. Well, after a momentous visit to New Delhi last month, where the Sri Lankan leader assured New Delhi that Colombo would safeguard its maritime interests and security, the Sri Lankan president, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, is set to visit China at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. Now, what exactly is the purpose? Well, they seek to balance ties with Beijing weeks after his India touchdown, a visit that China has termed as being of great importance. But during this visit, Mr. Dissanayake will hold bilateral talks with President Xi Jinping on a range of areas of mutual interest and will also meet the Chinese Premier along with the chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress on China. But Mr. Dissanayake, who began his political career as an anti-India voice, has since shifted his stance, as was evident in his India touchdown. As always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Do stay tuned. Let's get you a quick update on the LA wildfires. Well, as the destructive wildfires in Los Angeles rage on, the LA fire chief has said that they are not in the clear as firefighters brace for explosive fire growth. In fact, authorities claim firefighters are in a critical stage of their almost week-long battle against the deadly LA blazes. Crews report progress, but extremely critical conditions could spread the fires as dangerous winds return this week, the National Weather Service in the US warns. But at least 24 people have died, and with dozens still missing, there are likely to be a lot more deaths. This is something that the California governor has also reiterated. Well, switching tracks, Chinese officials are evaluating a potential option that involves Elon Musk acquiring the US operations of TikTok if the company fails to fend off a controversial ban on the short video app, according to some people who are familiar with the matter. In fact, Beijing officials strongly prefer that TikTok remains under the ownership of the parent ByteDance Limited, the people say, and the company is contesting the impending ban with an appeal to the US Supreme Court. But the justices signaled during arguments on the 10th of January that they are likely to uphold the law. In fact, senior Chinese officials had already begun to debate contingency plans for TikTok as part of an expansive discussion on how to work with Donald Trump's administration, one of which involves Elon Musk. By the way, the decision by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this week to resign as head of the Liberal Party has set in motion a leadership race against the backdrop of a looming general election, which will be held amid political turmoil, triggered by Donald Trump's America First economic nationalism. Now, it has also given Tesla CEO Elon Musk an opportunity to inject himself into yet another country's political turmoil. Since Trudeau's resignation, Musk has posted repeatedly about Canadian politics on X, the platform that was formerly known as Twitter, but he has praised clips of Pierre Poilievre, the leader of Canada's Conservative Party, while relishing in Trudeau's downfall and engaging with right-wing Canadian influencers.
After weeks of online campaigns targeting various corners of Europe, tech mogul Elon Musk has now trained his sights on Canada. The world's richest man has showered praise on Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre through a series of X posts. Whether it is approving Poilievre's oratory skills or reposting an old video of the politician chiding a local journalist while eating an apple, Musk seems to be cutting no corners in supporting his favorite Canadian politician. So who is Pierre Poilievre, and how come one of the most powerful people on the planet is throwing his weight behind him? Poilievre was born in Calgary, Alberta in 1979. His 16-year-old mother gave him up for adoption, and he was raised by two school teachers in the city's suburbs. He was the youngest member of the House of Commons when he won election at 25 in 2004. He is the leader of the Conservative Party, the main opposition party in Canada, and according to the latest polls, he is favourite to be the next Prime Minister. As the outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approval ratings seem to be touching new lows each month. Musk's support for Poilievre also means he is not mincing words in attacking Justin Trudeau. He has mocked the leader over his resignation, borrowing Donald Trump's language to refer to him as a governor. He's even called Trudeau an insufferable tool. While Poilievre has Musk's attention for now, it would be interesting to see which nation attracts the Tesla CEO next. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report for NDTV World.
Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada and once an ally of former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has actually warned Donald Trump sternly over his plans to annex Canada. In a video posted on the social media site X, he has said Canada is not for sale, not now, not ever. Singh has vowed retaliation if the United States imposes tariffs on Canada. And this is in the backdrop of Trump being vocal about his plans to take charge of Canada and make it the 51st US state. Listen in to what Jagmeet Singh had to say to Donald Trump.
I have a message for Donald Trump. Our country's not for sale. Not now, not ever. I lived across this country, and I can tell you, Canadians are a proud people. We're proud of our country, and we're ready to fight like hell to defend it. Right now, with the forest fires ravaging homes, Canadian firefighters showed up. That's who we are. We show up and support our neighbors. But if Donald Trump if you think you can pick a fight with us, there'll be a price to pay. I've committed that if Donald Trump imposes tariffs on us, we should respond with retaliatory tariffs in kind. I think that anyone running as Prime Minister should do the same.
Meanwhile, millions of people and mystics have gathered in the northern Indian city of Prayagraj for the Mahakumbh festival, which is the largest religious congregation on earth. Nearly 400 people, that's more than the population of the United States, are expected to participate in the festival, which is underway till the 26th of February for a series of ritual baths at the confluence of the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Saraswati rivers. As always, news and updates continue right here on NDTV 24/7. For now, we're slipping into a very short break. Thank you so much for investing your time in watching.